Clint Eastwood is known for being a Hollywood legend, tough on screen and quiet in real life. But at 94, he's finally opening up about something deeply personal. For years, people have wondered why he remained distant from his son, Scott Eastwood. There were no public statements, no red carpet appearances together, just silence. Fans thought it was just a rumor, until now. In a rare moment, Clint revealed the real reason behind the emotional distance, and it's not what anyone expected. Join us as we explore the personal lives of Clint and Scott Eastwood and the father-son relationship that has recently made headlines. Clint Eastwood's journey in Hollywood began in the 1950s, but his real breakthrough came with the TV series Rawhide, a Western show that made him a household name. He rose to even greater fame with the Dollars trilogy directed by Sergio Leone. These spaghetti westerns featured Clint as the iconic man with no name, a character who hardly spoke but commanded every scene with his powerful presence. In the 1970s and 1980s, Clint became the face of the Dirty Harry franchise, starring in 5 films as a fearless, no-nonsense cop. These roles cemented his image as a symbol of masculinity and strength. But Clint wasn't just an actor. In 1986, he tried something new by becoming the mayor of Carmel-by-the-Sea, California, where he served for 2 years. 2 of his biggest box office hits were Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, both of which were more lighthearted and comedic. His filmography also includes critically acclaimed roles in Hang High, The Outlaw Josie Wales' Pale Rider, Where Eagles Dare Escape from Alcatraz, Heartbreak Ridge, In the Line of Fire, and The Bridges of Madison County. Even in his later years, Clint stayed active, both acting in and directing films like Gran Torino, The Mule, and Cry Macho. He ran his own production company, Malpaso Productions, which produced nearly all his American films since 1967. As a director, Clint won Oscars for Best Director and Best Picture for Unforgiven in 1992 and $1 Million Baby in 2004. He also directed Mystic River, Letters from Iwo Jima, J. Edgar, Changeling, Invictus, American Sniper, Sully, and Richard Jewell. His work earned him 4 Academy Awards, 4 Golden Globes, 3 César Awards, and the AFI Life Achievement Award in 2000. France honored him with the Commander of the Ordre des Arts et des Lettres in 1994 and the Legion of Honor in 2007. Despite his shining career, Clint's personal life was far more complex. He was married twice and had multiple relationships, many overlapping. He fathered at least 8 known children with 6 different women, though he never confirmed the exact number. Clint once remarked, "They're vulnerable people. I can protect myself, but they can't." His biographer, Patrick McGilligan, even claimed Clint fathered a child while still in high school. Clint married his first wife, Margaret Neville Johnson, in December 1953 after meeting on a blind date. During their courtship, Clint had an affair that resulted in a daughter, Lori, born in 1954 and adopted by a couple in Seattle. The mother's identity was never revealed but was said to be part of a theater group Clint was involved with. Throughout his marriage to Johnson, Clint continued to have affairs, including a long-term relationship with stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis from 1959 to 1973. They had a daughter, Kimber, in 1964. Despite his infidelities, Johnson remained in the marriage, and they had 2 children together, Kyle in 1968 and Allison in 1972. However, the marriage was unstable. In 1975, Clint began living with actress and director Sondra Locke, who was also married, though her husband was gay and unemployed. Locke once said Clint told her, "You made me monogamous," and claimed he had never been in love before. Clint finally divorced Johnson in 1984, though Locke remained married until her death in 2018. According to Carmel publisher Bill Brown, Clint considered Locke the love of his life, though he never publicly commented on her passing. During his time with Locke, Clint began a hidden relationship with flight attendant Jacelyn Reeves. Together, they had 2 children, Scott, born in 1986, and Catherine, born in 1988. At the time, both children were listed as having no legal father. When Clint and Locke split in 1989, Locke filed a palimony case and later sued for fraud. Both were settled out of court. In the 1990s, Clint dated actress Frances Fisher, and they had a daughter, Francesca, in 1993. In 1996, he married news anchor Dina Ruiz, and they had a daughter, Morgan, the same year. This marriage lasted until 2014. Afterward, Clint was often seen with Christina Sandera, a restaurant hostess. Though they never confirmed their relationship, they appeared together publicly several times. Christina passed away from a heart attack in July 2024 at the age of 61. Later that year, Clint was seen with someone new, though her identity remains unknown. Neither Clint nor his team has commented. His life has always balanced public fame with private mystery, glory on one hand and silence on the other. But perhaps the most mysterious part of Clint Eastwood's life is not his movies or his many relationships. It's his role as a father, particularly to Scott Eastwood. Born Scott Clinton Reeves on March 21, 1986, at the Community Hospital of the Monterey Peninsula in California, Scott was raised by his mother, flight attendant Jacelyn Reeves. Clint Eastwood was his biological father, but their relationship remained private for years. Scott has one full sister, Catherine, and 6 known half-siblings: Lori, Kimber, Kyle, Allison, Francesca, and Morgan. He spent his early childhood in Carmel by the Sea before moving to Hawaii with his mother at age 10. He lived there for 4 years before returning to California and graduating from Carmel High School. Scott went on to earn a communications degree from Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles in 2008. Despite being the son of a Hollywood icon, Scott didn't grow up with a silver spoon. He had to work hard and earn his own way. The father-son bond was distant for many years. When Scott was born, his birth certificate listed his father as "father declined," a stark and telling sign of how strained or private things were at the beginning. Clint had an affair with Scott's mother, and while he may have been present in some ways, the emotional and public connection between them was long absent. The story of Scott and Clint Eastwood remains one of Hollywood's most intriguing family dynamics, a mix of silence, secrets, and slow reconciliation. Scott Eastwood's early life wasn't the glamorous Hollywood story many imagine. His parents' relationship ended in 1990 when Scott was just 4 years old. Though he spent some time with his father, legendary actor-director Clint Eastwood, there was no red carpet treatment. In a 2017 interview with Men's Health, Scott revealed, "My dad never gave me a cent. He made me work for everything." Raised in a strict household with no special favors, Scott faced not only family complexities but also personal tragedies that would change him forever. In 2016, during an interview with GQ Australia, he spoke about a heartbreaking loss. A woman he had dated died in a freak car accident. "It was a fender bender," he said, explaining that a recalled airbag exploded and sent metal through her body, splitting her spine. "I've never told anybody that," he admitted quietly. The experience deeply affected him, making relationships harder and leaving a permanent emotional scar. Despite having the Eastwood name, Scott didn't ride its coattails. In fact, he avoided using it altogether in the beginning, choosing instead to go by his mother's surname, Reeves, to dodge accusations of nepotism. There was already another actor named Scott Reeves, but Scott pushed forward, auditioning and working odd jobs like parking cars and doing construction to survive. He only adopted the Eastwood name in 2008, after proving himself. Still, it wasn't an easy path. He auditioned for several of his father's films, often without success, including American Sniper, directed by Clint himself. Scott admitted his father was tough but fair, offering no shortcuts. While he did land minor roles in Clint's Gran Torino and Invictus, it was in movies like The Longest Ride, Fury, and Taylor Swift's Wildest Dreams music video that he began to earn attention. The turning point came in 2014 when Scott once again auditioned for American Sniper, this time for the role of Jeff Kyle, brother to the lead character. Despite his hopes, the role went to Australian actor Keir O'Donnell. That rejection hurt, but it also led to a breakthrough. Scott was cast as the lead in The Longest Ride, 2015. Looking back, he saw that as fate, saying he wouldn't have gotten the opportunity if he had landed the American Sniper role. From there, his career took off with major roles in Suicide Squad, The Fate of the Furious, Wrath of Man, and Pacific Rim, Uprising. Yet, despite his growing resume, many still assumed his success was handed to him. Scott had to publicly clarify, "It doesn't work like that. He can't just pick up the phone and say, 'Cast my son.'" One of the most talked-about aspects of Scott's life is his relationship with Clint. For years, it was unclear, was it close or distant? In 2016, the father and son gave their first joint interview to Esquire, offering rare insight. At the time, Clint was promoting Sully, while Scott had a role in Oliver Stone's Snowden. The interview took place at Clint's longtime production office on the Warner Brothers lot, where he had worked since 1975. Clint, then 86, was still working nearly every day, still full of energy and purpose. He even had a soft side, leaving peanuts for a squirrel that occasionally visited his office. But make no mistake, Clint wasn't one to slow down. "Most people quit in their 60s, he said. "Why would you quit?" That tenacity shaped both his life and his son's. Getting to the point where they could do interviews together wasn't easy. Scott spent his childhood in Hawaii with his mother, Jacelyn Reeves, while Clint was mostly absent. It wasn't until Scott moved to California as a teenager that they began to spend real time together. With a 56-year age gap and very different personalities, their bond took time to form. In the interview, Scott joked, "I lived with my mom in Hawaii until I pissed her off, and then I came to live with my dad and pissed him off." Clint chuckled, calling Scott a pretty good kid, and credited Jacelyn for instilling strong values in their son. Scott described Clint as old school, a man of discipline, rules, and high standards. He taught Scott to be on time, show up, and work hard, values that Scott still carries with him. Even in Hollywood, Clint remained tough on his son. Scott once said, "He never gave me a cent. He made me work for everything." That included the film industry. Scott had to prove himself through effort, not connections. Though Clint passed him over for roles, including American Sniper, Scott didn't give up. Through determination and talent, he carved out his own path in Hollywood. No shortcuts, just hard work, resilience, and a name he eventually earned the right to carry with pride. Clint Eastwood was always watching over Scott, proud of the work his son was putting in. "He always came in and did a good job," Clint said. Scott laughed, noting that times had changed. "Now the chicks are calling and asking where Scott is." "They used to ask where I was," Clint joked. Scott added, "I'll take you out to the bar with me, it'll be fun." The bond between father and son was clear. Both had strong opinions but were learning to respect each other's journeys. "I'm still learning and growing," Scott admitted. "I'm just a kid in this business, finding power behind the camera." Scott reflected on watching his father's career and what he had learned. Film is more of a director's world than an actor's. If you're not creating your own material, you're just fighting for whatever's out there. Clint agreed, explaining how in the 1950s, as a contract actor with minor roles, he would stay on set instead of waiting in his trailer. "When I had days off, which was most days, I'd go down and watch other sets while they were shooting." He wanted to learn everything about filmmaking. Scott remembered Clint once saying, "As an actor, I never went back to my trailer. I always hung out on set and learned." That advice stayed with Scott, even while filming Fast and Furious, where he made sure to stay close to the crew and ask questions. Clint's own journey started humbly in 1954 at Universal, with one-liners and forgettable roles, but he kept showing up. He observed Joan Crawford and various directors. That's how he improved. When asked how he planned to stand beside such a legendary father and still carve his own path, Scott replied simply, "I just do what he does. Keep moving forward." Clint added, "With everything you do, learn something new about yourself. That's the secret. Always grow, always evolve." One of the most compelling moments in their interview came when Clint spoke about choosing projects by instinct. He recalled his lawyer and agent begging him not to do Every Which Way But Loose. "This is a piece of shit," they told him. But Clint liked that the script was different. "It's not happy ever after, the girl dumps the guy." I liked that. He made the film anyway, and it became a huge hit. The public loved it. That's why Clint always trusted his gut. "Nobody knows anything," he told Scott. "So don't listen to anyone else. Nobody knows diddly, they just think they do." Scott agreed and said he tries to learn from his dad every chance he gets. He even flew to Georgia just to watch Clint direct Sully. Clint praised him. "He's doing great. He's on the right track." They both admitted the journey isn't easy. "You just keep making movies," Scott said. "Hopefully you make some good ones. Probably going to make some bad ones along the way. But the key is to keep going, keep learning, and most of all, trust your gut." That's what Clint had done for decades, and what he passed on to Scott. Clint never handed his son roles on a silver platter, but he did offer powerful advice. In August 2024, at the premiere of his film Star 1992 Star, Scott shared what Clint told him when he first considered acting: "Follow your gut." That simple phrase stuck with him. In 2022, Scott revealed that Warner Brothers had offered him a 3-movie deal, including a role in a Suicide Squad sequel. But the deal felt rushed. They had no scripts and didn't want to pay him well. He went to Clint for advice. "They don't want to pay me," he said. Clint replied, "If it feels like they really need you and it's a good part, then do it. If not, then don't." That gave Scott clarity. He turned down the deal. It wasn't the easy path, but it was the right one. Clint's work ethic stuck with Scott. Despite ups and downs, Scott never gave up. He even hinted at moving behind the camera one day, just like his father. It's feast or famine for an actor. If you're not creating your own material, then you're just fighting for whatever's out there. I definitely have the desire to go to the other side. Scott's journey hasn't been easy. He wasn't instantly welcomed into Hollywood. He once used his mother's last name and worked in small roles, keeping his head down. Though Clint didn't hand him big roles, he gave Scott something more valuable: honesty and self-worth. Now, Scott Eastwood stands on his own, not just as Clint's son, but as an actor who built something real. But life has recently changed for Clint Eastwood, too. After losing his partner of 10 years, Christina Sandera, in July 2023 to a heart attack, Clint faced deep personal grief. She was only 61, and Clint was 93. They had met in 2014 at his Mission Ranch Hotel in Carmel, California, where she worked as a hostess. They made their red carpet debut at the 2015 Oscars. Her sudden death, caused by cardiac arrhythmia and coronary artery disease, was a shock. Clint issued a brief, heartfelt message: "Christina was a lovely, caring woman, and I will miss her very much." Though he preferred to grieve privately, Clint continued to show quiet strength. In early 2024, Scott gave an update: "He's doing good. He's a survivor and a trooper." Clint, born in 1930 during the Great Depression, had lived through war and hardship. "He saw a lot of struggle," Scott said. "It's in our blood. You don't complain, you don't whine, you just do." Now 94, Clint's health is a quiet concern, especially after Christina's passing. But he remains resilient. He's kept a low profile, yet Scott's words reveal a man still driven by the same unshakable spirit. Scott, despite the past, being mostly raised by his mother, Jacelyn Reeves, and only publicly acknowledged by Clint in 2002, now shares a stronger bond with his father. In 2024, Scott called Clint an inspiration. He spoke of how he'd love to work with him again. Scott had appeared in small roles in his dad's films like Gran Torino and Invictus, but he always had to audition, and sometimes didn't get the part, like in American Sniper. "I auditioned and didn't get a role," he said. But there's no bitterness. He carries his father's mindset now: create your own path. Just like Clint, Scott wants to direct. Despite distance, rejection, and a complicated past, Scott still sees Clint as someone he respects deeply, and someone he hopes to work with again. Though Clint once left his name off Scott's birth certificate, he later acknowledged him. Their story isn't perfect, but it's real. It took time, effort, and forgiveness. And for Scott, that made all the difference. It shaped the man, and the actor, he is today.